What's up, family? Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get into it. So we got 3 stories today that all connect to one bigger truth. The political games are getting exposed in real time. We got Democrats in Michigan abandoning their own party's candidate for a Republican. And we got a court ruling in Missouri that just flipped a safe Democrat seat into a Republican pickup opportunity. And we got New York City's mayor pushing a government grocery store plan that even a child could see is going to fall apart the second it touches reality when it comes to New York Mayor, I should say, Zohran Mamdani. So we're going to break all of this down, look at the different perspectives, and then I'll give my thoughts. So let's get started. Now, let's start in Michigan because this is where the story gets real interesting real fast. The Democrats spent tens of millions of dollars trying to stop Abdul El-Sayed from winning the nomination. Tens of millions. They poured money into backing Haley Stevens. They ran ads against him. They did everything short of changing the laws to keep him off the ballot. And he still won. He beat them anyway. So now Chuck Schumer is sitting there stuck with a candidate his own party didn't want, trying to get all Democrats to fall in line behind a guy they actively tried to destroy a few weeks ago, and it's not working. So you got Democrats publicly crossing party lines to support Mike Rogers, the Republican candidate. And before we get into it, I want you guys to see in regards of this happening when it comes to Mike Rogers and the support that's being pushed. Check out this clip.
I'm a lifelong Democrat. I voted for Obama. I voted for Hillary. I voted for Biden. I voted for Slotkin. I heavily supported Haley Stevens throughout her race. And now I'm voting for Mike Rogers because sometimes the election calls for us to look at something bigger than party lines. The Democratic nominee that we've been given does not share my values, and he does not agree with a world that I want my children to grow up in. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. I'm a mom. I'm a proud Michigander. I am a Democrat voting for Mike because I know that he shares the values that I do, and I know that he will work hard for families like mine in Michigan.
And in a state like Michigan, where races are decided by thousands of votes, not hundreds of thousands, those defections matter more than the Democrat Party wants to admit. Now, let me play you what this actually looks like in real life. This isn't some hypothetical. This is a real Democrat voter who stood up and said, I'm leaving my party, listening to what she said, mentioning that she's a lifelong Democrat, voting for Biden, voting for Hillary, voted for Obama, voted for Slotkin. She heavily supported Haley Stevens throughout her race, and now she's voting for Mike Rogers because sometimes the election calls for us to look at something bigger than party lines. The Democratic nominee that we've been given does not share my values, and he does not agree with a world that I want my children to grow up in. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. She's a mom, right? She's a proud Michigander. She's a Democrat voting for Mike because she know that he shares the values that she does, and he'll work hard for families like hers in Michigan. So if you let that sink in, as I was paraphrasing, also quoting a bit of what she was saying in the clip that we just watched, that's not a lifelong Republican. That's not an independent who floats between parties. That's an Obama voter, Hillary voter, Biden voter, Slotkin voter. She supported Haley Stevens, the candidate the establishment tried to force through. And now she's standing at a podium with Mike Rogers saying, I'm crossing party lines. Now, one voter doesn't prove a statewide realignment by itself. I get that. But she's exactly the type of voter the Democrat Party needs to keep if they want to hold Michigan. And they can't afford to lose voters like her in a close race. And here's the part that really stings for the Democrats. She wasn't the only one there. She wasn't some random person the campaign found. She was standing alongside a Democrat elected official. Michigan State Representative Karen Whitsett, a Democrat, also came out in support of Mike Rogers, right? And I find it very, very interesting. Within that being said, before I say any more, check out the clip.
I do not think people really realize what is on the line. You will lose your health insurance if the other candidate gets in office. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is what Medicare for All means. So if you enjoy going to ER now and sitting for 6 hours, Get ready to enjoy that a whole lot longer because you may be sitting there for 6 weeks. That means you will be in a clinic, in a hospital, wherever they say that you go. Once again, you say you don't want government in your business. Well, the government will be controlling your health care. They will control your doctors. They will control your medication. They will control your visits. They will control everything. So if for no other reason, common sense prevails that Mike Rogers is the candidate for you.
All right. So you have it. Karen Whitsett. And listen to why she's crossing over. She said, and I quote it as we just heard it, "I do not think people realize what is on the line. You will lose your health insurance if the other candidate gets in office. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it." That is what Medicare for All means. So if you enjoy going to the ER now and sitting for 6 hours, get ready to enjoy that a whole lot longer because you may be sitting there for 6 weeks. That means you will be in a clinic, in a hospital, wherever they say that you go. Once again, you say you don't want government in your business. Well, the government will be controlling your health care. And they will control your doctors, they will control your medication, and they will control your visits, and they will control everything. So for no other reason, common sense prevails that Mike Rogers is the candidate for you. End quote. See that right there in what she said that I just basically repeated is a Democratic elected official arguing policy against her own party's nominee. And she's not saying she's now a Republican. She's saying this specific Democrat is too extreme for her district. And she's right. Medicare for All sounds nice in a campaign speech, but when you actually look at what it means, government controls every single medical decision you make. And that's not freedom. That's a permission slip to see your own doctor. And that's why Whitsett is willing to break ranks. Now, here's where Mike Rogers showed political intelligence. He didn't stand up there and try to convert these Democrats into lifelong Republicans. That's not his play. He's not asking them to burn their party ID and swear allegiance to the GOP or the Republican Party. He's asking for a one-time permission slip. He said, and I quote, "To Democrat voters who feel their nominee doesn't represent them, all hope is not lost. I'm not asking you to be a Republican. I'm asking you for the opportunity to earn your trust." End quote. So think about it like this. Rogers only lost to Slotkin by about 19,000 votes in the last Senate race. That's a toss-up. Trump carried Michigan in 2024. The state is purple, not deep blue.
To Democrat voters who feel their nominee doesn't represent them and their values, all hope is not lost. I'm not asking you to be a Republican. I'm asking you for the opportunity to earn your trust. Michigan deserves a senator who will sit down whether you voted for me or not, will listen to you, will treat you with respect, will represent everybody. There are real differences in this race. I spent my career serving the country and taking on terrorists and criminals and threats to our national security. I believe in safe communities, a strong America, and protecting our freedoms. Abdul El-Sayed and I have very different visions of Michigan and America, but we're going to have plenty of time to talk about that along the campaign trail. Today is about what brings us together. Great schools for our kids, safe neighborhoods, good paying jobs, affordable homes, keeping our kids and grandkids in Michigan, a government that reminds us and remembers us, and that it works for us.
There you have it. That was, as you've seen, Mike Rogers, right? He's not asking nobody to convert. Now, mentioning that the state is purple and not deep blue, Rogers doesn't need 20% of Democrats to vote for him. He doesn't even need 10%. He needs a small fraction to say, you know what, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for the Republican this one time because the Democrat they gave me is too far left when it comes to Abdul El-Sayed. And that's a much easier philosophical act than trying to turn someone into a Republican for life. And you're not asking them to join a team. You're asking them to look at the specific choice in front of them and pick the safer option for their family. And the polling backs this up, right? I want you guys to check out the polling in regards to that. Right now, 96% of Republicans are backing Mike Rogers. That's near anonymous. The race is polling at 51% to 47% in Rogers' favor. Among independents is 48% leaning towards Rogers and 43% leaning towards El-Sayed. And here's the number that should terrify the Democrat Party. 54% of voters say Abdul El-Sayed is too extreme, and 54% that is. And that's not a small number. That's a majority of the electorate looking at your candidate and saying he's out of bounds. And El-Sayed doesn't have to lose a majority of Democrats to lose this election in a purple swing state like Michigan. He only needs to lose a small percentage at the margins, and that's exactly what's happening. Now, Chuck Schumer here, Chucky, as you see on the screen, knows this is a disaster. That's why they spent all that money trying to stop El-Sayed in the primary. And they knew he couldn't win in a general election. And now Schumer is stuck trying to sell a candidate his own party tried to bury.
Look, the bottom line is we're going to win Michigan. Let me tell you why we're going to win Michigan. First, El-Sayed has brought in new energy and new talent into the Democratic Party, but also in Michigan itself. But second, Michigan, Trump has so bungled the Michigan economy. You know, the numbers for Trump on how well he's doing in keeping costs down in the economy is in the low 30s. In the country, it's in the high 20s in Michigan. Why? He created a trade war with Canada. Anyone who's halfway decent as president knows that the Michigan economy and the Canadian economy are totally intertwined. And he's blown it. We're going to win Michigan. Look, the bottom line is
Delusion at its best, as you see. And disclaimer, that is C-SPAN in their video. It's not the audio on my end that's coming out one-sided because I see it's happening as I was listening to it. That's why I was checking the audio, but that's the video itself, not on my end. Now, when you see Chuck Schumer is trying to sell a candidate his own party tried to bury, basically saying he's new energy and coming out and then saying the bottom line is we're going to win Michigan, right? El-Sayed has brought new energy and new talent into the Democratic Party. Michigan, Trump has so bungled the Michigan economy. The numbers for Trump on how well he's doing and keeping costs down is in the low 30s in the country. It's in the high 20s in Michigan. He created a trade war with Canada. Anyone who's halfway decent as a president knows that the Michigan economy and the Canadian economy are totally intertwined. Find that interesting when the Democrats were the one that actually sold off our auto manufacturing businesses when it comes to our car industry, in which Michigan is the auto manufacturing hub and basically the head of our whole auto manufacturing business in the first place because it started and has thrived in Michigan from the get-go when it comes to us making and manufacturing USA cars or cars in the United States of America, which is our beautiful land and country. So Schumer is trying to nationalize this race, blame Trump, and hope that distracts from the fact that his own candidate is too far left for the state. But here's the thing. If the economy was really Schumer's winning issue, why did Trump win Michigan in 2024? The voters already rendered their verdict. And Schumer's claim about a Canada trade war hurting Michigan, I mean, let's be real for a second. The Canadian economy and Michigan economy are connected, sure, but what's hurting Michigan families more? A trade negotiation or a senator who wants to put the government in charge of your health care, your energy, your education, and your grocery bill? And the voters are looking at both options and they're picking the one that doesn't involve turning their lives over to Washington. All right. Now let's talk about the bigger Senate math because this is where the national stakes come in. As you guys will see, and I will show you guys, and I want to read this to you. Right now in the Senate is 53 Republicans to 47 Democrats. Michigan is one of the seats currently held by a Democrat that Republicans are targeting, along with Georgia and New Hampshire. Those are the three Democrat-held seats that are competitive. Democrats need to flip North Carolina, Maine, Ohio, Alaska, maybe Texas, and Iowa if they're feeling optimistic. But let's be honest, the math is brutal for them, and they have to hold every single one of their own toss-up seats while flipping multiple Republican seats just to break even. And if they lose Michigan, the path to a Senate majority basically disappears, and that's why this story matters beyond one race. Rogers doesn't need a Democratic collapse. She just needs a Democratic leak. A few voters here, a few voters there, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Now, talking about Missouri, an Associated Press article here, it says Missouri court allows new Trump-backed U.S. House districts to be used in November election. So as we read, Jefferson City. A Missouri judge has allowed new U.S. House districts backed by President Donald Trump to be used in the November elections, rejecting a bid to put the Republican-friendly districts to a statewide vote for the people. The ruling Wednesday by Cole County Circuit Judge Daniel Green is a victory for Republicans seeking to hold on to their slim majority in the U.S. House, but the case is likely to end up in the state Supreme Court. Missouri's new districts already were used in the August primaries. On that same day, Republican Secretary of State Denny Hoskins rejected a petition with thousands of signatures seeking to force a November referendum on the map. Hoskins asserted that Missouri's constitution doesn't allow the referendum on congressional redistricting. The judge agreed with Hoskins and other Republicans who joined the defense of the new map. So, when you look at Republicans, they just picked up another win, as we just read this article, as you hear, that could have major consequences for the control of the House. A Missouri judge just ruled, as we just read, that the new Trump-backed redistricting map can be used in the November election when it comes to the midterms. So Democrats had activists trying to block it, but the judge rejected their effort, and now the longtime Democratic congressman named Emanuel Clever, who has represented this district since 2005. Mind you, I was about 4 or 5 years old kid. I'm 27 years old now. Not does that matter. But 2005. So over a decade, maybe 2 decades. Yeah. So it's suddenly running in a seat that no longer favors Democrats when it comes to Emanuel Clever. Well, let me explain why this matters. See, under the old map, Clever's Kansas City seat was a safe Democratic district. He won it by 24 points in 2024 with roughly 60% of the vote. All right. So 2 years ago, that was his reality. Now, under the new map, Trump would have carried this district by 18 points, by about 18 points. And that's a massive swing. That's the difference between a safe Democratic seat and a leaning Republican seat. And Clever has been in Congress for 2 decades, as I said. Now has to defend himself in a territory that doesn't want a Democrat. And the Republican challenger, as you see on the screen, the name is Rick Bratton. He's a Marine veteran, a state senator, and Trump backed him. So you got a strong Republican candidate running in a district that just got redrawn to be more Republican friendly against a 20-year-old incumbent who is suddenly on defense. Now, here's why this matters outside of Missouri. Control of the House is going to come down to a handful of seats. Republicans have a slim majority right now. Democrats are spending millions trying to flip enough seats to take control. And if they take the House, they have already told us exactly what they plan to do. Impeach President Trump again. And then they'll be very clear about this. Their top priority, if they take back the House, is to launch impeachment proceedings. And that means if you think things are hard to get done now, well, for slim majority, imagine how much harder it gets when Democrats control the chamber that starts all the legislation. Every single thing this administration, our current president and their phenomenal administration, wants to do will have to go through a Democrat-controlled House first, and it would be a complete standstill. So every seat matters, and Missouri just gave Republicans a legitimate shot at picking up another Democrat-held seat, and that's a big deal. Now, let's get into the third story, right? And before I get into that, I want you guys to check out this clip when it comes to New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
Harlem, but any borough location is to be complementary to the neighborhood, and really, rising tides, right? We can all cooperate and work together in a meaningful way.
Do you mind? What is the? I've heard that term from EDC officials that these are meant to be complementary. What does that mean? What does that complementary mean in terms of policy, operations, and things like that?
Yeah, I think we're, as an agency looking at a number of different complementary, policies and programs, grants, incentives that can come alongside these grocery stores to support other, local independent businesses that are in the neighborhoods. We're going to continue to listen, and we're going to continue to engage, and I'll be, alongside the operator as our partner, and like I said, making sure that we are complementary to the other businesses that are here in the neighborhood.
So other locations, other grocery stores can get grants from the city under this?
Something on the table. We're exploring a lot of different options and opportunities. I think there's a whole host of levers that the EDC is able to work within to make sure that everyone has equitable and equal access.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. I mean, look, you can call him Zohran Mamdani. All right. His government grocery store plan is already running into the exact problems critics warned about before the first store even opened. And the city's response to those problems is somehow even worse than their original plan. So let me break this down. The city wants to use $70 million in taxpayer money to open government-backed grocery stores. And they plan to sell groceries at 30% below normal retail price. The city will cover the rent. The city will cover the property taxes. They want a private business to come in and run the day-to-day operations, handle hiring, security, crime, loss prevention, all of that. And then the city will subsidize any losses that business takes, trying to keep prices 30% below market rate for the entire year. So now local grocery store owners are looking at this, as you've seen this woman that I played who is a local grocery store owner in New York, however, or a small business owner, local grocer in New York, are looking at this and saying, hold on, so you're going to use my tax dollars to open a store that sells groceries cheaper than I can sell them, and you expect me to just stay in business. How does that work? So you're competing against the government that also taxes you. It's not a fair fight. That's not competition. That's the state using its power to crush private business and then acting surprised when a private business complains about it. So a reporter asks a city official at a press conference, what are you going to do about the local grocers who are going to get destroyed by this? And the official's answer was something, man, when it comes to that.
Commie Mart is already spooking local grocers who are worried it will eat their lunch and destroy their business. But have no fear, Mondani's Grocery Czar is ready to tackle the problem, floating the idea of grants for private grocers, to keep the competition at bay. Watch.
We're, as an agency looking at a number of different complementary, policies and programs, grants, incentives that can come alongside these grocery stores to support other, local independent businesses.
So other locations, other grocery stores can get grants from the city under this?
Something on the table. We're exploring a lot of different options and opportunities.
So, Kennedy, this starts as a small deal, a couple $1 million, really, and now you're just throwing money at everything.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing. This is going to get so expensive. So as billionaires start to leave New York City because of the pied-à-terre tax and the other taxes that are coming their way, because we're going to soak the rich. Yeah, they're like, go ahead and soak me all the way to Star Island in Florida. Bye. The people who are left holding the bucket are going to be the ones paying the most taxes, because this is already an expensive endeavor. They say it's going to be $30 million. It's going to be like the train to nowhere. It's going to be $300 million before you know it. And Mamdani's claim that New York City is a food desert, all you have to do is go to the South Bronx, and you will see a phenomenal number of immigrant-owned grocery stores where they have razor-thin profit margins, yet they stay in their own communities to feed their families and people they have grown up with instead of moving out of the South Bronx. And now they're going to be undercut by grocery stores like this. And, with the revolt, because they're all getting together to fight City Hall on this, they're saying, that's okay, we'll just throw cash at you too. So that means more money the taxpayer has to put out for a problem that was really created by Mamdani.
Jessica, care to defend this?
No, thanks.
Would you like to?
I will not. I'll let you keep going.
Would you like to just pass?
Not allowed.
4 hours of babysitting, $3K, universal childcare. That's the good stuff that Mamdani was talking about. That's the stuff that Kathy Hochul is willing to help him with budget-wise. This was always a loser of a plan, and it hasn't worked out in record time.
Okay.
But he's so proud of it.
Yes.
And the thing is, it's really interesting to watch these DSA folks get out of the university classroom and then have their policy ideas tested in real life. We saw that in the A block with the Ashik getting his ash Ashik. And now you have, on the grocery stores, it's like none of these immigrants, or I don't even know, maybe they're not immigrants, whoever is a bodega owner or a small market owner, they weren't asking for anything from the government. They're not asking for Waverly to come up with a plan that they could think about, maybe in a way getting some grants so that they could pay their bills. So they want to work and pay their bills. What would really help them is better quality of life and getting the homeless people off the streets that, for example, stand in front of grocery stores so that you don't want to go into them. Why do you think everybody has their stuff delivered by Amazon? Because you can't go into CVS and just pick up deodorant because you have to call somebody and there's only one person working. And they've made it so impossible for business owners to actually be able to do business. And now they want to throw money at them. I don't think that it will pass muster. It would be kind of cute and fun to watch them scramble around like this and try to find the answers that they didn't get tested on in the university. But unfortunately, this is like our taxpayer dollars and these business owners who don't want it.
Be sure to like.
Well, there you have it. And that's what happens when theory doesn't meet reality and you're so busy living in theory. See, when it comes to testing the theory and then reality seems to hit your ass and then you looking stupid because you don't really know the real life result. But that's what happens when it comes to running a business. So you got a mayor who never ran or done anything. He just had mommy who propped him up and she was wealthy and he never had no real life experience, no work experience, no anything. So his leadership was never really tested or measured to what type of extent. So you just hired somebody off of words and us being a smooth talker and charismatic and don't know how to do nothing. And now lives just suffering the consequences for it. And bodegas and individuals who actually worked hard to sustain their bodega and be a grocery store on the corner for their local communities and feed their families. Now it's impossible. And basically he's shutting them out using government money, in this case, taxpayer money from New Yorkers to fund a government grocery ranch store and run out other community corner stores and bodegas out of their own business and their own jobs in the way they feed their family, where they will be under his control at the palm of his hand. And if you don't listen, the simple fact is we already done destroyed your grocery store, so that's shut down your business. So now you have to come to us for food, and basically you have to start to ration because those who don't get to the food fast enough, what happens is things start to lead to scarcity, and then there's not enough food on the shelves, and then people start stealing, and crime run rampant, and et cetera, et cetera. See, businesses fluctuate, right? You have ups and downs, you have good seasons and bad seasons, but you adjust to it. And the thing is, when it comes to a business, you learn as you learn the business as you go, and you make the adjustment, but you learn from your mistakes to continue to sharpen the iron to become better and effective when it comes to running your business. But that's why also the number one rule from a lot of successful businessmen or businesswomen is minding your business, because you can't sit there and measure your business to others. You can compete to stay innovative and evolve, but minding your business is looking at the metrics of your own business and analytics and seeing where things stand so you know where to be effective at and fill in the gaps to continue to succeed in your own. So you don't have to be oblivious that you have competition, but if you're too busy focused on the competition, then how you're going to be focused on improving your own business, right? But see, this is stuff you don't learn in a book. It happens. Taxes, inflation, property taxes. A theory inside of a book in a university doesn't determine your taxes. A politician does. And I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at the ignorance. For the lack of ignorance, people shall perish. That's all that is. And y'all picked a leader in New York who is making, not only will he perish, but the whole city will. And he's in the bubble living in New York, the New York mayor mansion, and propping himself up in the name of fraud schemes and plotting, possibly getting kickbacks, which has happened to be the pattern of the Democratic Party being so far left and throwing money at everything, but don't even know effectively if it's even worth throwing money at anything because they're running a damn experiment based on theories out of a university book. So I'm going to leave that there, all right? And breaking all of this down, you realize what she said, right? Ultimately, the goals of these locations is to be complementary to the neighborhood. Rising tide, we can all cooperate and work together in a meaningful way. And the reporter pressed her, what does this complementary mean in terms of policy and operations? And she basically said, well, we're looking at grants and incentives, right? This was the interview for this young woman here. We're looking at grants, incentives, and programs that can come alongside these grocery stores to support other local independent businesses. So the plan is, and I'm breaking it down to you, That was her words, local independent businesses, end quote. Now I'm gonna break it down to you. So the plan is we're gonna use your tax money. So your local independent business, being a bodega, being a corner store, you're already paying property taxes. Then you have your insurance when it comes to you have to have insurance on your business in case something happens. Now you're paying not only property taxes, you're paying city taxes, state taxes, business, insurance, right? Property insurance. And then you have to pay for the goods to stock up on the shelves to sell to your local communities. And most likely you may have to pay for some type of monitor security, whether that is armed security being present, whether that's surveillance camera running 24/7. Then you have electric. And then they have to figure out after all of that, what do they profit to go home to feed their families? So they plan to use your tax money, and this includes these independent businesses who pay taxes, obviously, to open a store that undercuts your prices. And then when you go out of business, we'll offer you a grant to feel better about it. It's not a solution. That's a band-aid on a bullet wound. Now, from an accounting perspective, I'm going to speak from my background of an accounting perspective, because this is where it kicks in. See, the city committed to $70 million in capital just to get these stores open. And then they're covering the rent and the property taxes, and they're subsidizing a 30% discount. And now they're talking about grants for the private grocers who get hurt by the government store. So that's 3 layers of taxpayer money going into one idea. And none of it addresses the actual problem. So then you got Mayor Zohran Mudami keeps calling New York City a food desert, but is it really a food desert? I mean, you go to the South Bronx, right? And you see bodegas, right? Grocery stores on every corner, right? Running razor thin profit margins, meaning they're not taking home a lot of money to feed their families, but they're serving their communities every day on the corner of these bodegas. And they're not asking for the government to help. They're not asking for grants. They just want to work and run their business. What they actually need is better quality of life, as you heard on the 5 here with Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters, right? I agree. As they were saying on this panel, the 5. They need a better quality of life in their neighborhoods. They need the homeless encampments cleared from outside their storefronts. I agree. And they need crime addressed so customers feel safe walking into a store. And they need the city to stop making it impossible to do business. But instead of fixing those problems, the city wants to build a government store and call it a day. All right? And let me be real about something else. When you start pricing things below market rate using taxpayer subsidies, meaning money from taxpayers to basically keep things up and running keep a government store up and running, you create a demand that can never be satisfied, because people will line up for those 30% discounts and the store will run out of inventory. And then they'll need to restock faster. And then they'll need more taxpayer money, aka subsidies. The more successful the store is at selling cheap groceries, the more money it loses because the discounts are eating into the revenue. And at some point, the city has to decide how much they're willing to spend to keep those shelves full. 50 million, 100 million, 200 million. Because once you start this, you just can't stop. You can't just stop. People get used to those prices. They build their budgets around them. And now you got a permanent government obligation that grows every single year. So the irony here is that the city is already talking about giving grants to the private grocers they're about to put out of business. Ain't that coincidence? So you're creating a problem with one government program and then creating another government program to fix the first one. That's why I say these damn Democrats, man, they like to start problems and manufacture problems that wasn't problems in the first place. And then I like they're coming in to save the damn day when they caused the problem in the first place. Then now you lose more money. More money is being printed. You're pricing out working class, low income families. They can't survive. They can't just get up and move. So now they're struggling every single day. You're talking about paycheck to paycheck if there's even job opportunities, because your state, let alone city, is not business friendly because you want to tax the rich. But the rich is the one that actually create job opportunities. And if you're not business friendly, businesses is the one that creates the jobs. And actually, if you work alongside the businesses, and actually give them tax cuts, they will be able to expand their business instead of being taxed to death, because then you'll be able to have more jobs they can have. Because you got to think about it from a business perspective. They want to get rid of paying the most taxes. So the way you do that is write-offs. So if you have a business that's successful and they're getting tax cuts from the city and the state where they're not paying that much taxes, but they're already paying the most of taxes, but you're willing to work for them to not be taxed to death so they can actually make profits. They can actually expand the business more, buy more buildings, rent out more buildings to the city, and pay property taxes and create more job opportunities and roles to fill, because the business is doing so great that it can actually expand and pay more salaries. So when you look at all of that, the same person who's shopping at the government store for those 30% discounts is also paying the taxes that fund the whole circus. You're just in a clown joining the circus. It's not free groceries. It's your own money coming back to you with the government taking a cut along the way. So you think they're helping you, but you already paid for it times 10. And they're just giving you a piece of it back in the name of a grocery store. Now, here's where the bigger conversation come in, right? Because there's a clip, right, where from a segment where someone made a point, and I think it's worth addressing. They talked about growing up in Hungary under communism and going to state-run grocery stores. And they said it was terrible. The shelves were empty. The quality was bad. And before I get into that, I want to play this last clip in this video, breaking it down for you guys. And if you got value from this video, get this video a big thumbs up and hype it up so far.
This manipulation, these ideas, like people are really getting, oh, maybe being socialist is cool. This is all coming out of social media, 100%. It's not natural that people are sitting around, reading Marx and going, what a great idea. Like, let's implement this. They're not doing that. Very few of these quote-unquote Marxists that you find on social media are even aware of the consequences, the historical consequences of these strategies and what it ultimately leads to, which is like checkers. It's like real simple. Like, you're going to have a military that controls everything you do. As soon as you give up everything to the state, well, the state has the guns and you have nothing. And then they tell you what to do.
They tell you what to do.
It sucks. It doesn't mean that that's the way to do it, because capitalism is brutal. Yeah, capitalism needs some fucking guardrails. That's
for
what it
sure.
is.
Everything needs to be. But you've got no, I totally agree. Like, I always joke about it, but it's kind of true. Is like Mamdani with the state-run grocery stores. Like, we had that when I was a kid. I literally went to them in Hungary. It was a communist state. There was only state-run grocery stores. I saw them. There's one like at the end of the block where my grandma lived, and I would go there in the morning to get the whatever it was, and it's just terrible. Like, it's really.
I'm very torn on social safety nets. I think we should have them.
All right, family. I do agree where he was going with that. I think they should have safety, social safety nets, but to a certain extent, some people still have to help themselves, right? It's like 50 and 50, right? Somebody can meet you halfway, but you got to meet them halfway. So as long as you're willing to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you're trying to gain a skill, go to school, figure it out, you got a job, you're working, you're not just sitting and using welfare as a lifeline. Cool. I'm all for that, you getting help, especially if the help is going to help you as you're trying to help yourself as well. So I agree with the simple fact of safety nets to a certain extent. Like, it's temporary when it comes to the help you're getting, but it's helping you get further so you don't have to rely on government handouts. So, look, who was talking to Joe Rogan here is Steve Hilton, British American TV show host. He is running for governor of California. I pray that he wins to turn around California and turn California red. We already know Karen Bass with Nithya Raman, they're going against each other, and the way they're throwing each other under the bus about encampments and school safety is bonkers, because I've seen some clips already surfacing around. It's a shame how they cheated out Spencer Pratt. in which all the mail-in ballots coincidentally went to Nithya Raman when she was in third place, and it bumped her up to second and basically kicked Spencer Pratt out the rest. And now you have Nithya Raman and incumbent Karen Bass going against each other who represent the same party. See, Karen Bass is far left, but Nithya Raman is far, far left, right? So, not to get off topic, but he mentioned Hungary, right? Under communism, or Hungary, and going to state-run grocery stores. And he said it was terrible, Steve Hilton. The shelves were empty, the quality was bad, the selection was non-existent. Because when the government runs the store, the incentive structure is completely backwards. A private business owner has to keep customers happy or they go out of business. A government manager just have to keep their job. Those are two very different motivations. And that's why this plan is doomed from the start. It's not that government can't do anything right. It's that government is terrible at running businesses because it doesn't have to be good at it. It can lose money forever and just ask for more money in the name of taxation and more taxes. Now, I want to address the capitalism versus socialism debate, as you heard here. That came up in the middle of this segment because I think there's some nuance that gets lost when people just scream at each other. One of the commentators said capitalism is brutal. Capitalism needs some guardrails. That's Joe Rogan. I agree with that. I don't think any serious person believes that capitalism works perfectly with zero rules. We have regulations. We have safety standards. We have antitrust laws. We have social safety nets like SNAP benefits and public housing for people who truly need help. I already spoke to that. The problem isn't having social programs. The problem is when the government overreaches and tries to replace the private market entirely. There's a difference between having a safety net for people who fall behind. Life is full of up and downs. We all just trying to figure it out, and building a system where nobody can climb in the first place. That's a difference. And that's what this grocery store plan represents. It's not a safety net. It's the government deciding it can run a better business than the people who actually know what they're doing. And this is where I want to address Schumer's point out about the Michigan economy in the Canada trade war, because it's worth challenging directly. Schumer said Trump bungled the Michigan economy and created a trade war with Canada. But let's look at what's actually happening. If the Michigan economy was truly in the tank because of Trump, why are Democrats losing voters in Michigan? Let me know in the comments, fam. I'm not telling you what to think or how to think. We're just having a productive conversation. Why are lifelong Democrats, as I showed you in the beginning of this video, crossing over to vote for a Republican? The answer is simple. Voters look at their own lives, their own wallets, their own neighborhoods, and they make a decision based on what they see, not what Schumer tells them to see. And what they see is a Democrat Party that has moved so far left that the old blue-collar Democratic voter no longer recognizes it. They see a party that embraces Medicare for All, defund the police rhetoric, open borders, and socialist economies or economics. And they're saying that's not me. I didn't sign up for that. I'm a Democrat, but I'm not a socialist. And that's the crack in the foundation that Mike Rogers is exploiting. Now back to the grocery plan, because there's one more piece I need to address. See, the mayor floated this whole thing as competition. He literally said, and I quote, "May the best store win." That's one of the dumbest things I've heard a politician say in a while, because it's not a competition when one side gets to use taxpayer money to subsidize its prices and the other side has to make a profit to stay alive. That's not a fair fight. That's a rigged game. It would be like me opening up a lemonade stand and the government opens up a lemonade stand next to me that gets free lemons, free sugar, free cups, and no rent. And the government says, "May the best lemonade win." Come on now. Come on. You know that's not a competition. That's a government using its power to pick winners and losers. And here's the part that should make every taxpayer angry. The city is already talking about giving grants to the private grocers who get hurt by this plan. So first they use your money to build a store that destroys private businesses. Then they use more of your money to hand out grants to the business they destroyed. And when that grant money runs out, they'll either raise your taxes or cut services somewhere else. It's a shell game. And the people holding the bag are the working families in New York City who just wanted to buy groceries at a fair price without the government getting involved. Now the billionaires can afford to leave New York, right? They're already leaving. They're already left. Going to Florida, Texas, for states that don't treat every policy idea like a university experiment. I wanted to show you guys this because I think this actually encapsulates or basically captures what I'm saying in regards of the billionaires leaving the non-friendly business state of New York. Bucky's CEO signals shift toward business-friendly red states. So that tells you it's already self-explanatory who are thriving. And it's not blue states, it's red states, right? because he just literally said, and I quote, as you see here, life's too short to try to build in places that don't appreciate what you're bringing. It's no different with people in your life. Some people won't appreciate you till you're gone, but that don't mean go back, because they obviously took advantage of the access you gave them until you no longer gave them access. I think it's the same thing when it comes to these businesses, right? So when you see this, billionaires and successful businesses thriving in red states, it tells you that the economics of these blue cities are failures, and that's why they're losing voters. And the people left behind, the ones who can't afford to leave, they're paying for all this. The wealth is leaving the city, and the tax burden is falling onto the people who can least afford it. And then you wonder why the red states can be able to close the wealth gap, but not the blue states. That's not progressive policy when it comes to these blue states. That's general destruction. Or generational destruction, I mean to say. Not general, generational destruction, and far as in the name of far left ideological policy or experiment, or like a policy idea like a university experiment, and whereas people who left behind who can't afford it has to pay for all of it in the name of the experimentation, and never real results to deliver and make their lives better. And the people pushing it will never feel the consequences because they have the resources to get out when things get bad in the name of thriving in that disaster that they created, hurting families. And I don't know how they sleep at night, honestly. But those are my thoughts, family. Now, let me bring this home with some wisdom. You know, the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 15, the simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thoughts to his steps. This is my favorite one. I say this a lot because the simple person hears free groceries, quote unquote, and thinks it sounds like a good deal. And the simple person hears Medicare for All and thinks it sounds compassionate. And the simple person hears fair maps and thinks it's about racial justice. But the prudent person, the person who thinks before they act, look at who's paying for it, look at who's benefiting, look at the long-term consequences. And that's what I'm trying to do on this channel, family. Give you the tools to think before you step, to ask the hard questions before you sign up for a program. That sounds good on paper, but falls apart in real life. And for those of you who aren't spiritual, my non-spiritual family, here's the life wisdom. Every policy that promises you something for nothing is hiding a cost somewhere. As you see, there is no free lunch. There's no free grocery store. There's no free healthcare. New York didn't even get free buses. So that tells you right there. That was his main big promise that everybody was touting about up there. And actually, busing got more expensive. And somebody's paying for it. And if you're not paying for it at the register, you're paying for it in the name of taxation. All they know how to do is tax, city, tax, and tax more money and get more money in the name of taxation and tax. And the question you have to ask yourself is whether the trade is worth it. And too often, the people selling these ideas aren't the ones who have to live with the results. Your family do, your children do. Make the wise decision, thrive, and get out of there and go to a business-friendly state or a family-friendly state that actually lobbies the values of your best interests. But this is what I will say, and I'm going to hold my family accountable. I love y'all, but I got to say the truth. I'm always will say the truth. You have people that's going to Florida that realize the crap that or the nonsense that they voted for out of ignorance, like in New York, and they want to flee to Florida. Don't take your bad voting habits over there to Florida when you voted in New York out of ignorance. And don't get me wrong. People have changed. All I'm saying is if you do leave because you realize you messed up and voted on the wrong side of history and actually destroying this country in the name of Democratic Socialism of America and these ideological policies, just make sure you have the wisdom then to change your approach in which I am saying based on being prudent and asking questions. And ask yourself, is the trade worth it? What wiser decisions when it comes to voting and making your voice be heard? So it actually benefits us as a country and generations after you and your family and your loved ones. And then we all can thrive with the freedom and liberties of the beauty of this country, United States of America, and how far we came, along with the Constitution, which the Democratic Socialists hate, but protects us in so many ways beautifully. Freedom and liberties, I mean. I'm correlating and talking about that's the freedom and liberties, and also what our founding fathers have created with checks and balances intentionally when it comes to separation of powers. So hit that like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, spread that peace, love, and positivity, and let the love supersede the hate, family. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. Love you guys.